For today's video, I'll be comparing Amano shrimp and cherry shrimp. Both of these are fantastic additions to most aquariums, but each have their own unique strengths that might make them a better fit for some specific setups. Hopefully by the end of the video you'll have a clearer idea of which shrimp is right for your tank, but there is a lot of crossover between them. Personally, I keep both species in around half of my aquariums to take advantage of the benefits that each offer, and the other half of my aquariums just have Neocaridina shrimp or cherry shrimp in them and no Amano shrimp. I want to kick things off by looking at the appearance and size of both species, as this is one of the few areas where there's a big difference between the two. Amano shrimp tend to have a more bland appearance, which is why they are usually chosen for their practical benefits such as their algae-eating abilities. While there are some selectively bred variants of Amano shrimp like snow white Amanos, they are rare and difficult to find in my area, and I've seen people say that after a couple of months they just turn back to the regular coloration anyway. That said, after molting, Amano shrimp can temporarily take on shades of red, blue, brown and orange as their new carapace reacts with minerals in the water, but this does usually fade within a few days. Size-wise, Amanos are noticeably larger than Neocaridina shrimp like cherry shrimp, which can be a huge advantage in some aquariums. This is because their larger size can help protect them from being eaten by certain species of fish. Female Amanos grow larger than males, and I guess that some of my oldest females are well over the 2-inch long mark by this point. A perfect example of how their size can make a difference is with my first betta fish, Skittles. She relentlessly hunted the cherry shrimp in her tank until I moved them to a different aquarium, but she never once went for the Amano shrimp in her tank, probably due to their far larger size. On the other hand, Neocaridina shrimp offer a wide range of stunning colours, as you can see from this breeding chart. While red cherry shrimp is still the most popular variety of Neocaridina shrimp in the hobby, varieties such as Bloody Mary, yellow Neos, orange Neos and blue jelly are all increasing in popularity. So to sum up this section, if you want small pops of colour around your tank, then cherry shrimp or one of the other varieties of Neocaridina shrimp are the clear winner. But if you're looking for something that's larger and less likely to be eaten by its tank mates, then Amano shrimp can pull ahead. Next up, I want to talk about the behaviour and personality of the shrimp, but for the most part, Amanos and cherries behave very similar to each other. In my experience, both species are very peaceful and generally mind their own business, spending most of their time grazing on surface area, eating food or searching for a mate. That said, I have occasionally seen Amano shrimp push smaller cherry shrimp away from food pellets in their tank, but the cherry shrimp simply wander off and find food elsewhere. Aside from that, I've never really seen any conflict between the two or any real interaction with their tank mates either. When it comes to personality though, I do think there's a key difference because Amano shrimp do tend to be the shyer species, at least in my tanks. I usually only see them out and about in the open areas and on the substrate of the tank when the lights first turn on, likely because they have been using the cover of darkness to go out and forage for food. It's also worth mentioning that I do usually see Amano shrimp grouping together in certain spots, suggesting that they are a social species and they like to have other types of Amano shrimp in their tank. Most of my smaller tanks have at least 3 Amano shrimps in them, but my larger 40-gallon has quite a few more and I'm not even 100% sure how many's in there now. Neocaridina shrimp on the other hand, at least in my experience, are a little bit more bolder and they'll be out and about a lot more often in the tank. Now this might just be grazing on the algae and biofilm that grow on the leaves, driftwood and rocks in their tank, but they do seem to be on the substrate a lot more than the Amano shrimps too. And this ties in nicely with the idea that Neocaridina are for more of a visual aesthetic appearance in the tank, while Amano shrimp are simply there for their practical algae-eating abilities. Moving on, and we get to tank mate compatibility. While the larger size of Amano shrimp does allow them to be kept with a slightly wider range of fish species, both Amanos and cherries generally have the same list of compatible tank mates. For the most part, this is just the regular community-friendly fish species in the hobby, which includes specific varieties of tetras, rasboras, danios, minnows, livebearers, corydoras, and many others. Because of this, you can successfully keep both species in the majority of community tank setups with minimal issues in your tank. Now, species like gourami can get a bad reputation for some of the larger varieties within the species, but my honey gourami have never shown any interest in the shrimp in their tanks, and they just do their own thing and leave the shrimp alone. And out of the 4 betta fish I've kept, only one of them has ever actively hunted my shrimp in the tank, and even then it was the cherry shrimp. She just left the Amanos alone. But I do still recommend that you try and pair your shrimp, be it Amano shrimp or cherry shrimp, with the more traditional, peaceful, community-friendly species in the hobby. Moving on, and we get to tank setup, and once again there's a lot of similarities between what Amano shrimp and cherry shrimp need in their tank, which makes setting up a tank for either or both species very easy. In my experience, both species do really well in a standard planted tank with some hardscape in there. This kind of setup provides pretty much everything the shrimp need, such as shelter, grazing surfaces, and plenty of cover after molting. Using Sirius stone or another limestone based rock can also be beneficial in some cases, as it slowly releases calcium carbonate into the water, which may help your shrimp molt. That said, I have soft acidic tap water at the lower end of the recommended ranges for both species, and I use lava rock in the majority of my tanks without issue. Now, this will depend on personal preference, but I do like to leave the older decaying plant leaves in my tanks because both Amano shrimp and cherry shrimp will use them as a food source, and then as they get broken down, it also releases nutrients into the tank for my plants. Another question I see on a regular basis is about keeping either species on aqua soil, but as you can see in the video clips, I've kept both on fluval stratum aqua soil countless times without issue. I know that aqua soils can reduce pH levels, but in my experience it isn't an issue for either species. If you're not into planted tanks, you can switch out the live plants that I keep for fake plants, or drop the plants altogether and just keep hardscape, or even use tank decorations, or even those small ceramic shrimp tubes that you can get online. But the more surface area in the tank does mean there's more grazing areas for food, as well as more hiding spots for the shrimp after a mold, so they can feel safe and secure while their carapace hardens up. Moving on, and we get to water parameters, and both Amano shrimp and Neocaridina share a lot of the same requirements here as well, making them very easy to keep in the same tank. My general recommendation when keeping both species in the same tank is to have a pH between 6.4 and 8.0, a KH between 3 and 10, and a GH between 4 and 10. To my understanding, neither species actually require the KH or carbonate hardness in the tank. It just helps act as a buffer to prevent rapid pH swings that can stress the shrimp out. And on top of that, there's still some leeway on either side of those water parameters, and I've kept both species slightly outside of them a few times with minimal issues. But there's plenty of shrimp salt products on the market these days that you can use to increase the GH to help your shrimp molt. The idea is that you get the shrimp salt product that's designed for your specific species of shrimp, because it increases the calcium and magnesium by a specific ratio to increase its ability to molt. But even though Amano shrimp and Neocaridina shrimp are from completely different species, I use the Neocaridina shrimp salt for both because there's just so much overlap in their water parameters, and I haven't had any issues to date. Even then, I only use shrimp salt in one aquarium right now, and I did test it in a bunch of different setups last year and really didn't see much difference. So because of that, I really do think that the majority of people will be able to keep either species in their tank using regular tap water with minimal issues. Moving on, and we get to feeding, and both Amano shrimp and Neocaridina shrimp do eat algae, but if you're specifically looking for an algae eater, Amano shrimp do pull out ahead. Not only do they consume more algae, but they'll also eat a wider range of different algae types in my experience. While Neocaridina shrimp do eat algae, from what I've seen they definitely prefer the softer algae types and won't touch any of the hair algae. Another great role that both species can fulfill in the average aquarium is cleaning up leftover fish food. While Amano shrimp will eat more leftover fish food per individual shrimp, the sheer numbers that you can breed when it comes to Neocaridina shrimp in your tank makes them an excellent option too. On top of that, both species will happily help break down decaying plant matter in your tank, and I've seen both species feeding on decaying leaves countless times. That said, I do think that Amano shrimp have stronger appendages that let them feed on the decaying plant matter in an earlier stage of decomposition than Neocaridina shrimp, but in most cases it's really not that much of a difference. And then we get down to target feeding, which is basically the process of deliberately adding food to the tank specifically for your shrimp. I've experimented with several options, and both species do seem to be big fans of Hikari mini algae wafers, Hikari sinking wafers, and fluval bug bites, but there'll be plenty of options on the market that work well. I also use natural treats too, such as spinach, oak leaves, mulberry leaves, and dandelion leaves, and again, the cherry shrimp and the Amano shrimp seem to really enjoy all of them. But at the end of the day, shrimp are opportunistic scavengers and potentially micro predators, and they'll eat just about anything they can find and get hold of. Next up is breeding, and both Amano shrimp and Neocaridina shrimp are fairly easy to breed in fresh water, and I often spot females from both species carrying eggs as they roam around the tank. The problem is that while Amano shrimp can readily breed in fresh water, their babies require brackish water to survive and develop. So in a typical freshwater aquarium, they simply don't make it and end up being a food source for their tank mates. But baby Neocaridina shrimp on the other hand are completely fine in fresh water. Their babies hatch as basically mini versions of the adults, and they do perfectly fine in the exact same water parameters. This is why it's so easy to grow a large colony of Neocaridina shrimp over time. They are just so easy to breed. So if you are interested in the breeding side of the shrimp keeping hobby, Neocaridina shrimp are definitely the easier option by far. So moving on, and we get to cost and availability, and this is one of the few areas where there's potentially a huge difference between the two options. In my area, both cherry shrimp and Amano shrimp are very easy to find, and the majority of shops in my area have them available. But Amano shrimp can be more expensive than Neocaridina shrimp depending on the specific grade of shrimp that you want. But if you're happy to go with lower grade Neocaridina shrimp with less coloration on them but still can look great, then they're usually around half the price of an Amano shrimp. But one of my friends married an Australian woman and he lives over there now, and he told me that Amano shrimp can be around 30 Australian dollars, which is 600% more than their price here in the UK. So yeah, when it comes to this section, you're just going to have to research the prices and availability in your area because things can fluctuate massively. Just to offer some quick final thoughts to round off the video, because both species definitely have their place in the hobby in my opinion, and if you have the budget available, you can get both and keep them in the same tank like I do myself. This lets you have the bright pops of colour from your Neocaridina shrimp while also having the functionality of the Amano shrimp, which will eat a wider range of algae types. My personal strategy is to let the Neocaridina shrimp breed to capacity that the aquarium can support and eat all of the softer algae types. This encourages my Amano shrimp to eat the more difficult algae types that my Neos won't touch and help keep the tank algae free. But if you can only keep one species, I would say go with Neocaridina shrimp if you're looking for aesthetics or something to eat soft algae, and go with Amano shrimp if you are having serious algae problems. Anyway guys, that brings the video to an end. Both species really are great options, and that's why I keep both of them in so many of my personal tanks. Thanks for watching the video and good luck with your new shrimp.